Tech Monday is a show which is initiated by the Mastercard Foundation, by the Mastercard Foundation, by the Mastercard Foundation, by the Mastercard Foundation, teaching solutions to Africa's youth unemployment by closing gaps in access to quality education and to advance the integration of technology in educational policies and practices across Africa. Now, Edtech Monday builds on the Foundation's Young Africa Work strategy in Ghana with the vision that by 2030, the country will be a continental destination of young people, especially women, harnessing opportunities to shape the future of work and to create an inclusive economy with enhanced resilience and all of those beautiful things. So because of this, the Mastercard Foundation has partnered MEST, which is the Meltwater Entrepreneurial School of Technology, a Pan-African technology institution, to bring you Edtech Monday as every last Monday of the month on the City Breakfast Show. And we're also on City FM's Facebook page. We're also on MEST Africa's Facebook page, by the way. And today we will be talking about a very important subject, using Edtech to drive learning for displaced youth. Now, more than 80 million people around the world have been uprooted by wars and persecution, including more than 26.4 million, and this number is rapidly rising. Now, June 20 each year is observed as World Refugee Day, dedicated to raising awareness of the situation of refugees throughout the world. This year, the day focuses on the theme right to asylum, given the crisis in Ukraine. Now, even as countries grapple with the rising number of refugees, there's an even bigger crisis looming. That's getting education to displaced people. According to UNHCR, only 68% are enrolled in primary, 34% in secondary, and only 5% of displaced people are in tertiary education. In Africa, millions of refugee students are struggling to catch up with education. In fact, recently we heard of Ghanaians returning from Ukraine. We are now struggling to even place them back in school. Now, today we'll be asking a couple of questions. Is Edtech the answer that will bridge the challenge of availing quality education to learners in displaced communities? Is Edtech the answer? That's the issue. We want to hear from you, so join the conversation via SMS 054 998 6996. That's also our WhatsApp number. Is Edtech the answer? If it is, what ways can Edtech help displaced people get good quality education? That's the conversation for the morning. And I'm very happy to announce my panel. I have Rahman Ibrahim Mohammed, a Sudanese refugee. He is currently studying at the Accra Institute of Technology. He's 25-year-old, born in Nyala, Sudan, came to Ghana in 2005, settled at the Christian refugee camp in the Western region, currently a student at the Institute. Good morning, Rahman. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
It's good to see you. How are you doing? Great. I'll talk to you shortly. I also have
thank you so much.
Great. I also have an education associate for
Hello?
UNHCR. Yes, Rahman, thank you. We have an education associate for UNHCR, Philip Mauli Kuma here, educated at University of Ghana, Legon, obtained a bachelor's degree in political science and French, holds a master's degree in international affairs and diplomacy from Legon. He's a trained teacher and an advocate for refugee education and inclusion. Philip, great to have you. Good morning. Philip, you are muted. Hello, Philip, can you hear me? All right, so Philip is attempting to talk to me. I can't hear him, but he was on. We will hear him shortly. Philip, we couldn't hear you. We'll try and fix that shortly. But I also have a refugee integration expert. Now, that's a new one for me, a refugee integration expert, Ria Huewo. Now, Ria is an economic development and refugee migration integration expert and founder of the Rio Corporation, which helps refugees, migrants, and other persons of concern to economically integrate into their host communities. He was also the former global head for equity and inclusion for refugees and migrants for the Global Shapers community of the World Economic Forum. Ria, thanks for joining us. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. All right. So, Philip, I really wanted to hear from you. I tried to contact you earlier. I didn't. But if you can hear me, can we start with a brief introduction on the subject of the topic of refugees? It's not the kind of thing that makes news that often. So it will be interesting work. How you've blended into Ghana and how this has shaped your life, your vision, your goals. Ibrahim. Mohammed, if you can hear me, you'll be muted. If you can unmute your mic and then we'll hear you.
Okay, can you hear me?
Loud and clear, go ahead.
Please, your question again, the line was breaking, sorry.
You came to Ghana in 2005. What was your experience like relocating to Ghana? How has it been so far?
Yes, I came to Ghana in 2005. I live in a Christian refugee camp for over 15 years. We live in a camp where we face a lot of challenges like the lack of proper education, the lack of good health, lack of job opportunities, the lack of security, lack of food and potable water. Our only means of survival in Christian camp here is the burning of charcoal, farming, and also fishing. People no more fish due to the extraction of the oil and gas from the sea and the work on the sea. People no more fish. Due to these factors, it is very, very difficult to succeed as a student or as a young, ambitious, or talented individual in Christian camp. Students find it very, very difficult to concentrate in class, or even talented individuals also find it very difficult to continue their talent due to the lack of fund and also support. My only motivation came from the kind of situation I find myself. I strive very harder and work very harder. And also I get encouragement from friends who left Christian camp for overseas. My future and many young guys was fading away in the kind of situation we find ourselves. I started working harder, dreaming of continuing my education after secondary school. I opened a computer classes where I teach people and earn means for living and support also my family. That's basically my experience so far so good. Right now, I was able to raise some funds and also with the help of UNHCR and also the livelihood team ADRA, I was able to enroll in Accra Institute of Technology, where I'm pursuing my higher advanced diploma course in ICT.
All right. So would you say that your story and what you've helped manage to do for yourself, is it the typical story of a refugee, or you say you are an outlier? I'm asking because it's not often that you have a refugee who's pursuing this high level of education and who's done all these things for themselves. So my question is, are you a typical refugee in Ghana, or will say you've been lucky? Your case has been a bit different.
No, I'm a typical refugee, but just due to my hard work, my ambition, I was able to overcome certain situations due to certain support and help, also from the livelihood team, ADRA, which supports Christian Camp in terms of livelihood, like support people in poetry, those who are ambitious in doing business and other stuff. I was also part of those who do apprenticeship. So I decided to choose ICT because that's where my dream lies, and I was able to get help from them, and I enrolled in the school.
Amazing. I'll come back to you. Thank you. Let me come to Ria Kuewo, who is the refugee expert. Ria, generally, what does the situation of refugee integration look like in Ghana?
I think it has plateaued a little bit. I believe there's so much more that can be done with regards to economically integrating refugees in Ghana. I think we did a lot with regards to, and we have really good refugee policies in Ghana. Our laws say that they're able to live and work as Ghanaians are, they naturalize and things like that, and they can stay here as long as they so please, if they so choose. But I think our efforts have plateaued a little bit, and we haven't really innovated from the kinds of opportunities that are available to refugees and the kinds of things that we are teaching. We haven't really kept up with the times on the ways in which the world is changing, becoming more technological, moving away from certain jobs. And so I think our efforts have indeed plateaued, and we certainly should be doing more with regards to economically integrating refugees, because something that we forget, and something that most people who don't work with refugees or know a refugee forget, is that refugees are also people who came to our country with skills and with their own education and with responsibility. I mean, you'll go to refugee camps and you'll meet people who are doctors, who are accountants, who are bankers and things like that. And I think there certainly is an avenue in which we can plug them into the larger economic ecosystem, so they can in turn help contribute to Ghana's domestic economy and so on and so forth, as opposed to the more surviving off the state sort of model that we have. I think there certainly is more that we can do with regards to helping refugees reach their full potential, realize their full potential, where they can be plugged into economic integration, even in their host communities.
Fair enough. Let me try Philip again, if Philip can hear me. Philip, I just wanted you to give me a quick opening remark so I know you are there. Philip, if you can hear me. Good morning. So today, a difficult day for Philip. We can't relocate. So you said, Ria, that there is a plateau in the way Ghana has been integrating refugees, or refugee welfare has kind of plateaued. Is this a general situation within the continent, or is this Ghana that has taken its eye off the ball? I just want to have a sense of perspective, because Ghana likes to say we like to pride ourselves in, oh, we are very welcoming people. We say we are very hospitable, Akwaba. So a lot of times Ghanaians have this sense of we do better than other African countries in receiving visitors. So I'm a bit surprised to hear that our credentials have plateaued. If you could elaborate a bit on that for me.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't mean our credentials with regards to hospitality and welcoming refugees. We do very well in that area, and it's something that I'm personally proud of. The issue is that our approach to making sure that social integration is happening is not the strongest, and our approach to ensure that economic inclusion is also happening is not the strongest. I mean, one of Africa's most prominent refugee host nations, Uganda, is doing a lot more with regards to economically integrating refugees than Ghana is, and they have a larger refugee climate. I think 1.4 million refugees as opposed to our 12,000 and something refugees, UNHCR recognized and registered refugees in Ghana. For instance, in Uganda, refugees they're given land to farm with, and the host communities are involved in doing this. And so the host community has been heavily involved in helping refugees integrate, and which is really important also, because there can be scenarios in which the host community feels as though foreigners have come into the country and have more opportunities than they have and are being treated nicer than they are. And so Uganda does this mix of opportunities in which the host community is heavily involved in social inclusion for refugees, which in turn makes economic inclusion easier. And so that's something that that Ghana could learn from and look at as well, in my opinion.
I like the concept of social and economic inclusion. I'll come back to that, but let me come back to Abdul Rahman. Abdul Rahman, you mentioned that you lived in Western region, a lot of difficulty. I just wanted you to tell us what it is like living away from your country of birth for all these years. You came to Ghana in 2005, so that's like 17 years ago. How does it feel like not being able to relate to people you grew up with when you were young? Do you get to even travel back to Sudan anytime? Do you talk to people in Sudan at all? I just want you to give me a sense of the life of a refugee in a place like Ghana.
Yes, it is very, very difficult leaving your home, not getting in touch with your friends, some of your family members, and also coming and also coming land in a situation where it's so very, very difficult. Most especially the kind of condition you were having back in your country, you are not seeing such conditions here, and also communicating with friends and family back. Becoming to integrate, integrating here was very difficult because we live in a camp where there are 16 different nationalities, different languages, different culture, different background. So coping with such environment was very, very, very difficult. It was very, very difficult.
You said there are 16 different nationalities. Can you tell me some of the people, some of the other nationalities in the camp, and how do you communicate? That's interesting.
Yes, officially we speak English here, because we have Liberians here, we have Sierra Leoneans, we have Sudanese, we have Togolese, we have Central Africans, we have Congolese, we have Ethiopian, we are about 16 different nationalities. We're also having Pakistanis, someone who is from Pakistan. So communicating is very, very difficult. So most of the time, most of them have to attend certain classes to be able to in the.
Wow. This is interesting. This is thank you, Abdul Rahman. This is Edtech Monday. We are talking to 3 people. We are trying to go in on how to help, on how to place people, help how to place people, help how to place people, help where we talk about help where we brought to by this series is hosted by this series is hosted by Sudanese refugee student at Sudanese refugee 25-year-old refugee student Ibrahim Ibrahim originally from Sudan. Ibrahim says originally from Sudan, refugee camp. Ibrahim says originally from Sudan, refugee camp. Ibrahim says originally from Sudan. I also have a refugee integration expert, Ria Kuewo, an economic and refugee migrant and integration expert and founder of the Rio Corporation. And then I have Philip Kuma here, who I've been trying to connect to for some technical reasons. I've not been able to. Philip is a trained teacher, an advocate for refugee inclusion and education, an education associate for UNHCR. Philip, I'm going to try you one more time because I really want to hear you. So Philip, if you can hear me, good morning.
Good morning, Bernard. Can you hear me now?
Loud and clear. So
Thank you.
you work within the refugee space. It's not something I talk about every day on my show. So just give me a sense of perspective. UNHCR Education Associate, what do you do there? How important is the issue of displaced people in our general conversations?
Thank you, Bernard, and good morning to your cherished listeners. Let me start by saying that at UNHCR, our core mandate is to provide protection to refugees and displaced persons, or refugees, asylum seekers, and stateless persons. And, you know, by protection, what it is that we talk about all the coordinated activities that would ensure that displaced persons or refugees, asylum seekers, and stateless persons enjoy their basic human rights. And by this, we are talking about access to education, which I work in that area or that field. We're talking about creating livelihood opportunities for refugees and asylum seekers, as well as stateless persons. We also talk about access to healthcare, shelter, water, and many others. And so specifically for my area, what I do is to ensure that refugees have access to education from basic to tertiary level. And I do this in partnership with the Ghana Refugee Board, and also work at the regional and district level with the Ghana Education Service and other stakeholders. Thank you.
That's brilliant. Well, we started by asking Ria the way Ghana's refugee integration is going. He says Ghana seems to have plateaued when it comes to the issue of refugee integration currently. What is your view on that? How well are we doing in integrating both socially and economically the people that we get as refugees?
Okay, thank you very much. I think I would just disagree a bit with Riyadh here, because in Ghana, we are not doing bad at all when it comes to integration of refugees. Even though there are a few challenges here and there, generally I can say that refugees, when it comes to education, they have access to education from basic to tertiary level, and they benefit from this education just as nationals. The nationals also benefit. They have the same benefit from basic to tertiary level. At the basic level, refugees go to school and they just pay just as nationals pay. They don't pay as foreign students, or they don't pay higher than foreign students. They just pay on the same level with nationals. When it comes to health, refugees benefit from healthcare just as nationals. They have access to health insurance, and they use that and to seek healthcare, and they get it. And when it comes to other opportunities, they get it. Where I think that I may agree with Riyadh is when it comes to work opportunities. Refugees have access to work. But when it comes to that, sometimes the reports that we receive or the complaints that come is that it's very difficult for them to get work permits when they get employment, and they need work permits so they can get the jobs that they want to do. That area, there are challenges here and there, but I think the Ghana Refugee Board is on top of that, and they are taking care of that, the challenges in that area. The Ghana Refugee Board and the Immigration Service are taking care of that. Yes, thank you.
Let me ask Rahman his experience with education, since you're saying we are not doing badly at all. Rahman, how has relocating to Ghana affected your education in particular? Tell me about your educational trajectory, how you got to AIT.
Sorry, your question again, the line was breaking.
Let's talk about your education You are now at AIT. How has your education been affected by your relocation to Ghana?
Yes, my education was affected greatly. One, due to the language barrier. Back in Sudan, I was in class 5. I was in primary 5. When I came to Ghana after the war, when I came to Ghana here, I had to start from kindergarten, which is KG. Due to the language, I had to go back to, and I was about 9 to 10 years at that time. So it has affected me so greatly. It has affected me so greatly, most especially when it comes to my age. I was supposed to be working by now in my country, but due to the war, when I came here, I started from the beginning due to the language barrier and other situations, culture differences. So it has affected me in one way or the other. It has affected me.
All right, let's come to the two experts. So let's talk about education. I think Philip was saying that in Ghana, refugees pay the same thing as other locals, so that's good enough. For me as a layman, I think that's not good enough. If somebody is displaced in your country, why should they even pay fees for education? Let me come to Rio. Am I being idealistic? Because I feel if somebody is displaced from their own country, the least you can do is to give them access to education for free. Why even ask them to pay? Because locals are in their own space, right? They earn a job. So telling me that refugees pay the same thing as Ghanaians pay, and that's good. From where I sit, I think is wrong. I don't know what you think.
No, I largely agree with that. I actually do. I think it would be, it's this thing about, I think the approach here from the government and the UNHCR is, of course, well-meaning, but it's the approach of equal opportunity, which is actually not equal, because it's not equitable. Now, equity tells us that if you and I are both Ghanaian nationals, or you're a refugee and I'm a Ghanaian national, then we should pay the same fees regardless of our economic standing. But if you're making a lot more money than I am and you're able to, but I'm the Ghanaian, I'm not able to, then even though it's equal, it's not equitable because it's unfair. It's unrealistic. And I think that's the same thing that's happened in the Ghanaian education space with regards to refugees and migrants and other persons of concern, including stateless people and displaced people. There's equal opportunity, but it's not actually equal, because it would be monumentally more difficult for someone living in a refugee camp, mostly away from viable economic opportunities and activities, to be able to pay for education the same as you and I would be able to pay for it as Ghanaians who have family here, who have other connections, who have perhaps an uncle who may help out, and so on and so forth. And so even though there is equal opportunity in education across the board, including Ghanaians and non-nationals, including refugees and migrants and other persons of concern, it actually might not be the best approach because it is not equitable. And so that's my opinion on that.
Philip, what's your reaction to that? The access to education is not equitable, using just the issue of fees. What's your response?
Yeah, thank you. Bernard, you see, when I talk about refugees paying fees, I think I have to put previously, tertiary institutions would want to charge refugees as foreign students because we do not have any policy that talks about refugee when it comes to education. Refugees are not included in any policy that talks about refugee education. So when they get to the tertiary level, they are not sure whether to say that these are refugees because it is not mentioned in any policy. So then they want to consider refugees as foreign students. But that is where we have to come in to negotiate with the Ghana Refugee Board that per the Geneva Convention, refugees are supposed to be considered at the same level, at par with nationals. And so you cannot place refugees above nationals and say that they are foreign students and so they need to pay fees. When it comes to secondary and basic education, refugees have access to education and they go to school because basic education is free, senior high school education is free. Of course, there are bottlenecks here and there or obstacles that may hinder education, which affect locals are the same as refugees. But this is where UNHCR and other partners also intervene to make sure that refugees have access to education. So these are the lines between the tertiary and then the basic and secondary education. For basic education, once refugees enroll, they have access to education, and then government even supports that, and then UNHCR also intervenes. Thank
Okay,
you.
let's use the research. One of the findings of the MasterCard Foundation's Secondary Education in Africa report is that learners in Africa do not necessarily follow a linear path. They often move in and out of the educational system. And that's equally true for young refugees. So my question is now looking forward. How can we build educational systems and products that are flexible and that factor in this non-linear trend? I'll stay with Philip on this first. Philip, how can we, based on this data we've seen, build educational systems and products that are flexible and that factor in this non-linear trend that the report has shown?
I think to do this, we need to take into consideration differentiated learning, where we need to consider individual differences, because like Mohammed mentioned, his education was nearly truncated when he came to Ghana. He came and he had to be repeated about 2 or 3 years behind. And this is the problem that we face in this country, or we face in Ghana here. Most refugees come because of language or linguistic barrier. They tend to have challenges when it comes to enrolling in mainstream education. Sometimes, our refugee population, we have those who speak French, we have Arabic, and then we have people who speak English. When they go to the school, because of language barrier, sometimes they are made to repeat about 2-3 years or even more behind. We have a case of a refugee who was enrolled in basic school, and later he applied for a scholarship and he got it, and he had to go to the university. When we found out, we realized that he had education up to the secondary level back home in Sudan, but because of language barrier, he had to enroll in a primary school in Ghana just to learn the English. And so we think that if we're talking about Edtech solution, this is where it comes in handy, because when refugees or displaced persons find themselves in a country or like Ghana, they do not have to go and be repeated 2-3 years or 4 years behind, because that alone is a demotivating factor. When they come, they can have access to Edtech programs online, and then they can study, and then when they are ready, they can take exams that they need to take so they can join mainstream educational system. And I think that is where we need to take a very critical look at, so that they don't have to spend years and waste time behind just because of linguistic barrier or gap.
All right. Let me jump to Ibrahim Rahman on the issue of children in refugee camps. And thank you for sharing your story with us. My question to you is, do children in the camps have access to schools and to educational technology of any kind? So in the camp, do the kids have access to education technology of any kind? And what kind of schools do they get to attend, Ibrahim?
Yes, sadly, and perhaps not surprisingly, very few refugee children have access to full cycle of education, from primary school, secondary school, and tertiary education. Here in Christian camp, we have the daycare education for children from the age of 2 to 4 years. We also have the basic school, which is the primary school, and we also have the junior high school, which we don't have here in Christian camp, but in the host community. So students who has to complete the basic school will go about 2 to 3 kilometers for their junior high school, and also students. But most of the students stop their education due to certain factors. When they complete the BEC or the junior high school, they try to stop because due to so many factors, their parent doesn't have job and they don't have food on their table. It becomes very difficult for them. Some of them feel that, okay, going to school is very difficult. Why can't I myself go and hustle in different ways? So some of them engage in bushworking. Some of them go and do boreholes and other works just for them to put food on their table. And this has hindered them behind. This is one of the things that hindered their education. They had to stop. Few of them had to continue to the secondary school and later on get opportunities from what we call the Daffy scholarship and go to the tertiary education. Yes, basically, education here in Christian camp is a bit difficult due to a lot of factors and challenges that we face. When it comes to technology, a lot of students doesn't have any background when it comes to ICT or technology because we don't have those facilities available. Those facilities like the library, the computer labs, the internet cafe, those are facilities that we lack behind and we don't have them. So when it comes to ICT or technology, a lot of students are lacking behind.
What's your reaction to what you've just heard, Ria, first? You just heard Mohammed describe access to education, access to EdTech. What does that say to you, Ria?
I mean, again, it just comes back to my point in the beginning of this conversation that our efforts have perhaps plateaued a little bit. So my first introduction into the refugee community was in 2013. I believe it was June or July, and I was in 2 refugee camps, and what I was doing there was strictly EdTech. So I'd taken online courses from this school in Switzerland called École Polytechnique Fédérale de Lausanne, also known as EPFL. And they had courses, entrepreneurship courses loaded onto mobile phones. And these courses would last 6 months and they could be taken at a learner's pace, which means that you could study today, miss a week and come back and study again. Your exams would be waiting for you. Your certification would be waiting for you at the end of your exams. And this was back in 2013. And this was something that came at nearly no cost at all, except for the cost of transportation. And of course, making sure that the learners had the right instructors. And so we run the program in 2 refugee camps in Ghana. And after 6 months, our learners graduated and received a certificate from EPFL. Now, what we could also be doing is leveraging on programs like that and leveraging on platforms like Coursera. Coursera is an education platform. It's an online education platform. It has courses from thousands or let's say hundreds of universities around the world. And a lot of these universities are also Ivy League universities. And yes, some of the courses are paid for, but there's also a refugee program where refugees receive a full scholarship to earn accredited courses. And so far, over 100,000 refugees have taken these courses, and they're available on nearly every continent, including Africa. And these are some of the things that we could be investing in. I think it would save us a lot of time and effort if we invested in, first and foremost, primary tech education for refugees, i.e. mobile phones and computers and that sort of thing, and so investing in computer labs for the refugee camps. And then partnering with platforms like Coursera, like EDX, like EPFL to deliver these courses that allow learners to learn at their own pace to refugee camps. The only thing that we would need would be an internet connection, which is easier to procure than having to go 3 kilometers to attend school as a child, which in and of itself is a large struggle, not only because of how far it is, but also because of things such as parents not working and children perhaps needing to walk these distances to and fro, and also risking their lives to do this. And so I think one of the things that we should be looking at is how can we reintroduce EdTech in a practical way? How can we leverage on things that already exist? How can we create more partnerships to take some of the burden of a lot of the good work that the UNHCR is already doing, a lot of the efforts that the Ghana Refugee Board is already doing, because we have the policies in place already. So how can we take a more practical approach to that? And another thing also with regards to education is I'd like to say that education in and of itself is not enough, because as I'm certain you know already, we have entered the space of the 4th industrial revolution, and a lot of jobs are being rendered redundant and obsolete. And so it means a lot of the things that we are teaching to this young generation of Africans who have become refugees are also going to be obsolete by the time that they're ready to work. And so how can we leverage again on these platforms that are delivering digital education on scholarship, on full scholarships? How can we leverage these things to teach skills of the future, to take advantage of skills that will actually be useful to refugees, to take advantage of certificates from universities that will help them get work permits, that will help them enter the workforce, that will help them be recognized and respected by companies in Ghana that they're trying to enter into for employment. And so that's my response to that.
Thank you very much indeed. Let me come to Philip from the UNHCR. Same question. In what practical ways can we use educational technology to help our displaced, particularly within the refugee community? What ideas can you share with us based on your experience?
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. You know, when it comes to access, refugees access Edtech, some investments have been done in that area. And let me begin by saying that, you know, UNHCR in partnership with the government, the Ghana Refugee Board, we have built schools in the camp in all our refugee camps, from the nursery to basic or JHS3 level in some of the camps. In other areas where we had advice from the Ghana Education Service, we realized that the distance or the population within that community is very limited. And so if you create a school, a separate school like that, we're going to have issues because the students are not many. And again, for mutual integration, it will be good that we have both host community children and refugees coming together to share ideas or to share knowledge in the classroom. And that is why sometimes we have to allow them to also get to schools in the host community so that it can accelerate or move the integration process faster. But we have also expanded and renovated schools in the host community to serve both refugees as well as children in the host community. Then in addition to this, we have built teachers' quarters, because the problems we have experienced is that sometimes when teachers are posted from urban areas, Accra, Kumasi, Takoradi, they come, and because the schools are or the communities are far, they have problems with accommodation. Can retain some quality teachers there. Then when it comes to the provision of learning materials, UNHCR also continues to support the Ghana Education Service. So we provide textbooks, we provide teaching and learning materials, stationery, and even to some extent, we have to pay exams levies, or where capitation grants are falling short, we have to help the schools so they can run examination and other forms of assessment for the children. So we do this. And then when it comes to Edtech, in 2017, we provided e-readers to children in the camp schools as well as the host community schools. And I think Mohammed is aware, during the when COVID set in, that became a source of support for children who were home. They couldn't go to school. They had to stay in the camp for almost a year. And we have to resort to the e-readers for them to have access to reading. We have also provided television to help or to aid in television-assisted instructions, where children can be connected by distance learning. You know, the Ghana Learning TV program that was running. It was at the backdrop of this that we had to provide televisions to help the children because they were home and most of them did not have access to television. There were cases where children had to say that they were going to watch TVs and their parents didn't want them to watch the TVs because it was not something that the parents wanted to watch. The parents wanted to watch other programs. So this came to help or to support refugee children and host community children to have continuous access to learning. And then when it comes to ICT centers, we have also supported, we recognize the fact that Edtech solution is the way. And so we have built ICT centers in the camps. Even in Krisan, we have built one just around the school so that refugees can have access to online learning. Kwewo talks about Coursera program. We have Coursera programs that are running for refugees. It's online and it's free for refugees. All they need is to have access to internet and computers, and then this can work. And we realize that it will be difficult to provide smartphones or internet to computers to every refugee. And so the solution or the way out is to make sure that we have a community center or an ICT center where they have access to internet, and then they can share, they can use that facility to improve themselves and build their capacity. And that also will serve the host community children as well. And so we're doing this in Accra. We even have a community center just around Circle that also serves refugees from the urban areas. And so we are doing this. That is why I do not want to say that entirely that nothing is being done, or we
Fair
are
enough.
not doing much to
Fair enough.
help refugees in those
I wanted
areas.
to ask Mohammed Ibrahim whether he knows of these things, because you mentioned his camp as well, Krisan. Mohammed, do the children in your camp have access to the things that Philip is talking about? He's talking about TV screens, he's talking about Coursera and all of these nice things. Is this something you are aware of? Because you yourself, you are somebody who's studying at a technology institute, so you know technology pretty well. Are these things known to the children in the camp that you live in?
I won't doubt the fact that there are certain things put in place by the education field, Mr. Philip. He put on television at various centers for children to access the e-learning or the learning program that is done on television. But there are certain things too I won't agree with him, because we don't see certain things going on in Christian camp here. Most especially, he spoke of a structure where there is computers and the internet is running through. We don't see such things here, honestly. We heard that there will be a structure built and there will be internet facilities available here, but up to now we don't see, or even I myself, when I come for vacation sometimes from school, I would like to access certain things for my education, but I don't see them available. So I have to work hard to be able to provide those things for my own self. Most of the things are not available, most especially the gadgets, the technology gadget, like the computers, like certain devices which are used to access internet and also help in education or research and do homeworks and assignments. Most of these things we lag behind, and student doesn't have those background for ICT, because from the beginning we don't have any facility available that can help a student to acknowledge or to even have the knowledge of ICT. I was able to organize classes with a single computer that I was having back during the COVID period. I was able to organize classes for students and matured people in Christian camp here, for them to just access and get a knowledge of ICT, so that they can be able to communicate with their families back home and have the basic knowledge of how the world is now advancing in terms of technology. So far, so good. This is my response.
This is still the Edtech Monday, and it's coming to you from City FM 97.3. We're also live on our Facebook page and the MEST page. Today, we are talking about using Edtech to bridge the gap for people who are in the displaced community, particularly refugees. And my guests are refugee student Rahman Ibrahim Mohammed, a Sudanese refugee based in the Krisan refugee camp in Western region. I also have Philip Mauli Kuma here, who's an education associate for UNHCR, as well as Ria Kuewo, who is a refugee integration expert. We spoke to somebody interesting. Doris Myers is the founder of LESAT, an NGO focused on locating, transforming, and impacting at-risk refugees in Ghana, Liberia, Kenya through education. Doris shares the current state of refugee education in Ghana and how we can ensure access to quality education and safe technology for all. Let's hear her.
I work with LESAT Africa. We are set up to inspire students to develop interest in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics in the STEM field. And for the past 10 years, we have worked with Kenya, Liberia, and Ghana. And in Ghana, we are working with refugees, and we are helping them to take on careers in the sciences. That is not forgetting technology, which is key career in the market. There are a lot of young people that are bright, they have the talents and the skills, but they don't have that collaborative community to hone their potential, they are endowed with, to be given that opportunity to get the education that they want. So we found students, when we visit schools, we find students, we see them today, we don't see them tomorrow. In school, when we go to their homes and ask them, why are you not in school? They say, oh, because of school fees, we can't afford. So there is no free education for refugees and that is a problem. Since technology started to spread around Africa, especially in Ghana, we found that most refugees that were separated from their families and their loved ones through technology, the social media, and other internet means, parents were able to connect with children, husband able to connect with wives, and wives able to connect. So it helps people to find their families that they could not see because of being displaced. What we have in our plate now for technology is working with other people to teach them how to use their phones, insert their cell phones, take pictures, and explore technology on their phones. And we also work with young people to teach them how they can use the technology positively and tell them the kind of opportunities that exist online instead of just going through their phones, taking pictures, viewing people's status. So we believe that people need to get educated on the usage of technology and tell them the importance that attached to it, the benefits and the opportunities that you can get from using technology. We work with LESA Ghana, which is the student arm organization here from Liberia. What we are doing in our own capacity is we are doing outreach and grassroots mobilization to schools and communities and telling them the importance of technology and how is it going to affect us years to come positively.
So that was Doris Myers, founder of LESAT, an NGO focused on locating, transforming, and impacting at high-risk refugees in Liberia, Ghana, and Kenya through STEM education. This is still Edtech Monday, brought to you by the MasterCard Foundation with support from Meltwater. It's live last Mondays every month, 9 a.m. on City Breakfast Show, also on Facebook. I'm going to wrap up shortly, but I just wanted to talk about collaboration. All right. So we've been talking about different things being done at different places. So I'll start this round of questions with Ria. How do we get the various agencies and stakeholders? We just heard from Doris. We know UNHCR is in that space. There's also media. All right. And then there's civil society. How do we get various agencies and stakeholders to collaborate to improve and provide solutions that can harness digital technology and education to ensure that nobody is left behind? So I'll start with you, Raya.
Okay, so I think the crux of doing that and doing it effectively and doing it long term would be finding the right partners. And finding the right partners includes finding for-profit companies and organizations that are interested or associated with refugees or other persons of concern in some way. From the onset of COVID-19 till early this year, my nonprofit raised $1,060,040 for just over 3,000 refugees in Ghana, Kenya, and India. And this was in unconditional basic income. And a lot of that money went into paying for either education directly, like their school fees, or paying for things like bicycles so they could reach their schools more easily. And so that's just to illustrate that the right partnerships will garner that kind of funding and that kind of support. Also, another thing that we could be looking at is identifying who is interested in this space. So we could be thinking of government and the UNHCR and the GRB, if they haven't done this already, could be thinking of partnerships such as Google, for instance, who have a tech program and who have a history of working with persons of concern already, and other companies such as Microsoft. And these things could garner long-standing partnerships with them. And also, I keep saying that Ghana is one of the best countries in the world to have refugee inclusion and integration programs, because our policies permit that, because our laws permit that, and because the refugee climate is very calm and is small enough that it's manageable, but also big enough that it means something with regards to being able to plug and play those solutions in other host nations. And so the approach should be which companies have a history or an association with refugees, migrants, and other persons of concern, and how do we garner those partnerships so they're mutually beneficial?
Thank you very much. Let me come to Philip as we wrap this up. Philip, what's your view about how we can collaborate, in addition to what Ria has said, in an effective way, so we ensure no displaced person is left behind as far as education is concerned? Philip, are you there? All right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's good. But I also want to add that we also need to make conscious effort to include refugees in our policies, because that is the way we can come together and get stakeholders to come on board. Because sometimes it's like you see documents where they mention children or persons with disability, they mention other gender and all that, but refugees are missing. So it's like as if refugees do not exist at all in the country. But if we make conscious effort to include them in our policies, then we can begin from there, and then we can get the stakeholders to come together and then talk about it. And I also want to talk about the fact that we need to also align Edtech solutions into our curriculum, or make conscious effort to include them in our curriculum, because sometimes you introduce these things in the schools and it's not able to be sustained, because the teachers or the schools would tell you that, or at the policy level or the education office will tell you that they don't have space to include this in the curriculum. And because of that, these things will be sitting down and children will not be able to take good advantage of it because it is missing in the curriculum. And those are some of the things we do. When we're able to get all these things included, I think it will be a very good solution to the refugee problem, or the problem of displaced children and youth. Thank you.
All right. Before I give the closing comments to Ibrahim, I just want to read a general comment that has come in. Good morning, Mr. Avle. Brilliant discussion this morning. The economic integration of refugees has been a challenge even in developed countries. In the UK, there have been discussions on governments allowing refugees to work instead of the meager living allowance given to them. It's sad to hear that there's a similar challenge in Ghana. It will be to our advantage to hone the many skills that refugees come into our countries with. I hope the discussions don't end here today. I am happy to engage in the economic integration process as I am working in a research on this topic. I wish Abdul all the best in the pursuit of his dreams. This is Vera from Glasgow. So Philip, Ria, Ibrahim, there's somebody offering to help us work on this to take it to the next level. Ibrahim, I'm going to give you the final word. How do you see the future? You are studying at AIT. You are still in Ghana. What are your dreams? Where do you hope to be in the next 5 years? Tell us.
Yeah, thank you so much. First of all, I want to complete my education and come out with the flying colors and be able to also find a job, that proper job that I can do and earn means, and also be able to support my communities and children that are coming up. I want to also be a way or a source of encouragement to most of the young individuals who are coming up, or most of the young, ambitious and talented students and persons in Christian refugee camp. And also I would like to plead on behalf of UNHCR, Ghana Refugee Board and Edtech to be able to help refugee students and parents and every refugee residing in Ghana in terms of education, in terms of livelihood opportunities, in terms of job opportunities, and so that we can be able to capture everything so simple and be able to cope with people and technology in the society.
You are a great ambassador for students all over the world, and I'm so proud of you, Ibrahim Abdulrahman. Thank you so much for what you're doing. Ibrahim Mohammed Abdulrahman is based in Ghana. He's originally from Nyala, Sudan. I'm looking to give him a Ghanaian name. In fact, his name is already Ibrahim, so he's from Ghana already. You don't even need to change your name. You're already from Ghana. Congratulations on what you're doing, and definitely you'll be a role model for many refugees across the world. Philip Mauli Kuma here is a teacher and an advocate for refugee education and inclusion. Philip, thank you for the great work you do. because we know you work with a lot of constraints, but you're pushing. So well done. Keep doing what you do, Philip. And of course,
thank you, Bernard.
Ria Kuewo, amazing insights into not just refugees, but people of concern, bringing very unique insights into the discussion. I really want to thank you for your thoughts, Ria. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Don't forget the Edtech Monday is brought to you by the Meltwater. Sorry, it's brought to you by Mastercard Foundation with support from Meltwater Educational Institute for Technology or Entrepreneurial Institute for Science and Technology, MEST. Very important partnership that brings education technology to the fore. A wonderful opportunity to think about education and technology on radio. And this program was also live on CTFM's Facebook page and on MEST Africa's Facebook page.
Thank you.
Big thanks to the team.
I want to thank Mr.
Thomas, Daniel.
I want to thank Mr. Philip and Ria.
Khalid.
Thank you so much. Mr. Philip is doing a great
All of you
job.
who've been working hard behind the scenes
Thank
to
you.
make this happen. Yao as well. Miss Khalid of
Ria
MEST.
as well.
Thank you for listening.
Shout out to you.
My name is
Alright,
Bernard
thank you.
Avle. It's just the beginning of the week. Watch out for Business Festival tomorrow. We're starting on TV at 11 and we're looking at the digital economy. Koku will be